Hi everyone, it's Sunday, January 29th, time for another HideNet Week in Review. I'm Vera Dordick. So it was a relatively quiet week everywhere with China out on their Lunar New Year holiday, so activity was definitely lower. Starting with the U.S. market, prices ended up mainly steady again, but then no one expected any big changes during this particular week. Most sellers were pretty quiet, but some packers were active. Looking at heavy Texas steers, prices were unchanged, mainly due to the lack of activity. The price range is the same from $22 as much as $25 on 64, 66-pound selections. Turns out automotive customers have been busier, so those prices have been steady. And in the cow sector, Holstein cows and steers are still very desirable. Now, everyone's waiting to see what happens to demand after the Lunar New Year. Combined export sales for the week ending January 19th were 616,100, and shipments were 536,400, down slightly from the week before. Looking at slaughter, the estimate for the week ending January 28th was 659,000, and that's 2% higher again this week. Turning to Europe, editor Andrea Guolo says that January has ended and basically nothing was done during the month. Prices are still unchanged, but in the beginning, beginning maybe even next week, the new levels will start being set. In the UK and Ireland, sellers made some deals, but nothing on volume. So the British 36 plus ox is at 82 to 83 cents per kilo in sterling. And in Ireland, the price is at 93 to 95 cents per kilo in euros, which is just a touch softer. Looking at European bulls, prices didn't change, and the few sales were for just a truckload or two. So that means that northern German bulls are unchanged at €1.10 to €1.15 per kilo for the 40 plus kilo selections, and the southern hides are also steady. Andrea also notes that right now there are some conflicting views of what's going on with the bull market. With regard to European cows, he says prices are still the same because demand is substantially absent, and while deliveries of contracts that have been signed are still going on, new negotiations are still stalled. And in the veal sector, there's not much to say because everything there is quite stable. Of course, February could bring about some real changes in that market too. In his analysis, Andrea discusses what's going on with supply and production right now in Europe, and he looks at the upcoming fairs, and finally he takes a look at the consumption situation and what we can expect on that front. From South America, editor Ronald Guiel reports that raw material prices were again stable, so fresh hides are still selling at $1.11 per kilo, and the reference price of TR1 was also steady at 62 cents per square foot. While most other Latin origins were stable, some are under pressure for prices to go down for their raw material. In other news from Brazil, the international fairs are lined up on the sector's calendar. The footwear industry is more cautious but predicts growth in 2023. And then from elsewhere in Latin America, we have retail sales in the Chilean capital plummeting in 2022, but footwear did grow. In Mexico, the 78th edition of Intermoda hosted more than 20,000 buyers, and the fashion industry there started 2023 with a price drop. From Paraguay, the Chaja refrigerator has been blocked from doing business with the U.S. due to sanctions against its owner, who is the former president, and Peru's import rate is the highest in the last 20 years. So that is all we have for this week, and until next week, good night from HideNet.